Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the XLNC Light Testing Ground. We just finished watching FSU go on a tear against I can't pronounce that. Osaitos Gaming.
hmm
And they put on a commanding performance. What do you think about that one, Ravishing?
Oh man, it was a fun time nonetheless. Today is the day of the untouchable ADCs here, man. So that's exactly what we're gonna bring into it, and exactly what's gonna be happening. I feel it throughout this day. But let's go ahead and talk about that draft.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So both teams, they kind of got the same uh, concept going on
hmm
when they were drafting their teams. So both are picking pretty strong team fight compositions. They team fight in slightly different ways, but still strong team fight compositions. A lot of great CC, a lot of frontline on both sides if it gets to that point. But we'll talk about that later. And they also have a side laner that can do global pressure. So we've got a Galio that could potentially have global pressure, and we have a Shen that can have global pressure. All right.
Yeah.
So with that on the board, there are two champions in this game that kind of made the difference between who won and who lost, and that was the Rammus for FSU, and for Osaitos it was the Hecarim. And let me know what exactly happened there, Ravishing.
So I believe there's this fun term which people in the league community like to use called jungle diff, which is a little bit what happened, but not necessarily though. But so what was a lot of fun was almost immediately because as soon as he got into the game, Ramus was able to get a kill onto the Hecarim, take away his red,
Mhm.
and right after to get out with only the use of his flash. Right,
Yeah, getting
it's
that red is so huge. Oh my gosh.
huge. Yeah, like absolutely massive, and it's already you see the Hecarim falling behind. Now Hecarim and falling behind do not go hand in hand, unfortunately. And then as that you move forward with the Diana being able to gank the Hecarim at his blue as well, just seeing that being shutting down, and now the Hecarim is 0-2. He has a choice to make. He is underfarmed, barely been able to get any ganks. Like, oh man, I'm the jungler. I need to make a difference. So what does he decide to do? Hecarim is not relegated to going Cinderhulk
Mm.
by the time
Oh,
the mid game starts. And then what are you left as? You pretty much just have to ult in and hope for the best as a Hecarim.
yeah, exactly. You're basically running disruption at that point. I mean, Hecarim and Rammus kind of fill in the same type of role. So Hecarim runs at you really fast. Rammus runs at you really fast. But once they get there, that's where their roles kind of shift. So once Hecarim reaches your team, he's trying to ult into your backline, one shot one of your carries with, a lot of damage, a great charge, or at least displace one of your AD carries to where your team can finish him off. Rammus, on the other hand, is trying to run in there, powerball whoever he can get, and then throw that taunt down and be just a nuisance standing there as a ball, right? So
Mhm.
in order to be able to do that massive amount of damage that a Hecarim needs to do, he needs to be at least somewhat ahead. He needs items in order to do that damage. Rammus, on the other hand, can just defensive ball curl and he just gets free stats, right? It's like having a thorn mail, basically. So it's the onus is on Hecarim to establish the lead in that matchup. And when he gets his red stolen at level 1, basically, now it's like, okay, I can't really gank without my red, so I'm set even further behind. And then he dies in his jungle. That's super terrible. And then Diana gigabrains him, reads his pathing, and just takes him out while he's trying to get his blue. That's it's all she wrote for Hecarim. At that point, you're basically useless. You're never going to get to the kind of gold differential that you need as a Hecarim to be more effective than a Rammus in a team fight. And we saw that in that bottom lane team fight where Hecarim was waiting around behind the tower. He's like, okay, when can I go? When can I go? I really need to make a play happen here. He goes in, Shen ulti's in, and then we got Galio ulting, and everybody's running down. It's a huge cluster, basically. And at the end of the day, FSU comes out on top, and their misfortune gets to ride into that late game feeling really good.
Yeah, definitely. So, and especially what we saw, what worked really well for them was that Misfortune and Diana combo. I think I'm going out with the ultimate both coming into it. Diana being able to actually pull people back into the MFL. That was absolutely beautiful to see. And finally, what just one final point we want to bring up before we try to head to the next game here, Mitt, is so how because we mentioned how it was the day of the untouchable ADCs.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was able to touch that MF. Like almost nobody.
Oh,
Hecarim tried, he went in, and then he was like, wait. I have Cinderhulk.
I do nothing here. I just
So absurd.
I stand on you and try to burn you, but not really doing much. Feels bad, man.
Yeah,
That's
unfortunately it does. And then from the back end too, Misfortune able to put so much damage on the back line, the Diana onto the front line, and three different beefy boys with that Galio peeling so much, nobody's will touch them. But with that being said though, let's go ahead and talk about this next game here, man. It's going to be FSU Black versus God Squad. Oh my god, if I'm not hyped, I'm elated, sir. I'm popping
I
off my chair almost.
Oh my god, I am so excited for this one. Like, we just saw FSU put on a huge clinic, and in the first game we saw God Squad. They bring a more kind of composed, they bring a really nice just like team fight. You can feel the experience of God Squad in the way that they played that first game against Glacial. It was very systematic the way that they took them out and executed their composition. So we're gonna see if FSU can keep that same explosivity, that same kind of mind games. The jungle mid duo there with the Rammus with Olipop and Swagasm, like they were running a clinic on that Hecarim the entire game. Is God Squad gonna let that happen, or are they experienced enough to know what to expect and to play around that? That's what I think is gonna define this game right now.
I think it should be a lot of fun overall, especially considering both teams have shown us how much their bot lane especially can pop off too. God Squad with the Varus and FSU with that MF. But both two definitely do depend on their support. So we'll see what kind of drafts, what kind of picks they go into it. Before we head it off to the casters here, mate, who do you have going into this game?
Oh my gosh. Oh, don't make me answer that question. This is so, this is so
You got to.
close.
We got
Alright,
to. Come on.
honestly, I love a strong mid jungle duo, and I think that you're right. It has been untouchable AD carries. Whoever can get their AD carry to a position where they're not getting touched, right, is gonna win. But to get to that point, you need to facilitate that. You need to catalyze that process somehow, and the catalyst for that process is having strong mid lane control and strong jungle control. So I think that FSU showed that their mid jungle duo is strong, and I think they're going to be the ones to dethrone the God Squad.
Well, you have not been wrong so far this game here, but you know what? I just to counter you, because I still have hope in my FSU boys here. They're absolute champion pools and fun play styles is what we're looking forward to. With that being said, let's hand it off to the casters. Jake and Diatropa, take it away, guys.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Excellent analyst desk once again, and I feel Mitt's pain. Oh my goodness. How do you decide which of these two teams to win? I can't know. Diatropa, welcome back. We are about to jump into Pro Draft in this Game 3. FSU Black taking on God Squad. The analyst desk was talking about how both teams have played so heavily around their bottom lane, and now we get to see bot team versus bot team go head-to-head against each other. Diatropa, I think you have yourself muted, by the way. Just so you are aware. I have unmuted you on my end. It is not my fault. It's, there we go. I see the mute disappear. Welcome back.
You're totally right. I'm very excited for the game, and so excited that I needed to stop myself from screaming with the mute. I am really curious to see what kind of bot lane we see, because it felt like so much bot difference on a micro level in the first game with God Squad, and it felt like more of an advantage that was spread from the mid jungle with FSU. The analysts did a really good job of identifying that that was really what won them that game. We also didn't really get to see what Your Mad Cute does as a jungler, because he didn't have to participate in the previous game having the Karthus. And so I think this is going to be so much about the jungle matchup. I don't see the mid laner for God Squad being able to spread the advantage to the jungle as much. We saw him perhaps making a lot of micro errors out of either error completely or just a little bit of overconfidence. But I didn't see quite the same level of reserved and controlled play that I saw just in this past game. So I'm a little bit hesitant as to what God Squad's chances really are even if they are able to find advantages in the bot lane. I felt like FSU just put on a really good team play game, and I think that's really what's going to determine it.
I think Ravishing might have been the one who said it. Ravishing or Med, I forget which analyst. They're both incredible, but one of them said that FSU Black put on a clinic in game number 2. And I think that's an excellent word to use on just generally speaking how clean the game felt. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel crazy, just fight, and we hope that we're better mechanically. It didn't feel panicked. It was just slow and steady, clean gameplay, picking and choosing their times to engage, and knowing whether or not their champions actually had the power spikes to be able to pull off the plays that they were looking to play off of or punish. Now, most of the time, FSU Black was the one who was actually choosing to engage in fights. Very rarely did the team they're up against actually have the opportunity to pick and choose fights on their terms, which means that this game, if God Squad is able to pick and choose fights and really hard shove and initiate those fights, it could set FSU Black on the back foot saying, whoa, hold on a second, and we're not having to respond rather than being the aggressor. But you can see when it comes to the picks already, they've given themselves a very safe bottom lane that allows them to pick and choose those fights that, hey, Ezreal, Yuumi jumps on Ezreal, they can back away, they can arcane shift out of a fight that they don't want to take and wait for a proper engagement, which probably going to come through in the second pick phase now that they've grabbed that Shen as well.
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about, God Squad really perhaps looking to bring the fight to FSU, is being denied really nicely by the pickup of the Ezreal and the Shen. There's going to be so much anti-dive, anti-aggression from FSU that if they can kite out those fights, especially with Ezreal, the strength that he is right now with the Death Stance, they may just be able to run away until the health bars are low enough that they can just walk back at God Squad.
Yep, it's kind of that back up and then re-engage. But yeah, as you're saying, Trundle, Maokai, super tanky. Please, 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 if there is a Lord, don't let there be Ocean Drakes in this game. Otherwise, God Squad is going to be unkillable, par none. Maokai plus Ocean Drakes is an unstoppable force. And I'm sorry, or immovable object. There we go. And I don't think the FSU Black have an unstoppable force to respond. They still have the opportunity to pick their jungle. Maybe they go for something like that Olaf, who is a unstoppable force because he can Ragnarok and just walk through the CC of the enemy team. So maybe that's something that they're looking more towards, as God Squad has banned away the Sylas and the Zac, trying to pinch some of that jungle pool and initiation a little bit, whereas God Squad is limiting some of those more carry-oriented meta champions.
I'm sorry. I'm super excited about this Kog'Maw right now. Having picking up the Lulu early on is almost taunting with the maybe you want to ban away the Varus and saving that until they knew that they couldn't anymore. They are saving the counter pick for the mid, which I think is really smart to kind of disable here's
a big thought.
Olipop. There we go.
What about Kog'Maw mid, Varus bot lane?
Oh my God! What if it happens? Oh, I'm so excited. This is such smart drafting. I think that they're going to try and counter pick mid. So if Kog'Maw goes well into it, that's entirely possible. But right now, it looks like God Squad is going to try and set up around their bot laner, who we saw have such great micro previously, and the Lulu Kog'Maw is even more threatening than the Varus. So fingers crossed that it happens, because I feel like right now they already have a great team fight composition. This could just be an Orianna into the Qiyana.
Well, it's Kiki. You're saying Orianna into the Qiyana. That could definitely be is it a Fiddle in the middle? Is it the Fiddlesticks? It's hovered. It's not locked in yet. Don't get your hopes up too high. God Squad is still picking and choosing what they want. I do like the Qiyana out of FSU Black. Incredibly mobile champion, able to really get around the map. And again, when you're looking at those carries in the back line of an enemy team, you want something that's mobile enough to actually get on top of them, get around the front line. And in the game that we had with Zed, that's exactly what he was able to do. Qiyana, very similar champion, and be able to kind of slip around to flank the enemy team, get onto their big carry of this Kog'Maw. But it's Cassiopeia, locked in by God Squad, wanting a little bit more utility and a little bit more team fight in their composition.
Yeah, it forces them to bring out another large damage source that they may not have had otherwise. I'm also I think that like it's interesting that they picked the Cassiopeia into the Sejuani. I feel like most of the time when we do see Cass, it is into Sejuani, which is interesting because I consider her like a very counter-engaging champion, but doesn't necessarily directly counter Sej. I just like I think that seeing those champions, especially in lightweight, so often paired against each other, is a really interesting pattern to note. I think Cassiopeia has done really well into comps that want to run at you so far, but FSU also haven't committed entirely to that identity. I feel like God Squad is a little bit more set up for one thing they do really well going into this game.
Engage. Maokai with the roots, Trundle running at you with pillars, and Kog'Maw to deal all the damage with Lulu to protect. I love it. It's a very simple composition, right? You don't have to think too hard about what your job is. When it came to FSU's Black in game number 2, we had some questions around a bit more complex composition where you have to time your ultimates, you have to pick your engages carefully. Well, a part of that, and this is absolutely no BMing to Osidos because they definitely had a challenge when it came to that game, but they did kind of play a little bit more passively, letting FSU Black pick and choose a lot of the fights, and when you're the composition that wants to be picking the fights, it really helps that the enemy team lets you do that. So in those sorts of situations, FSU Black had an advantage there. Well, this game, God Squad's running a very simple composition. You press a button, you get some CC, your friend presses button, they kill the person. FSU Black has themselves the more complex champion in that you can layer crowd control with Sejuani and Shen, but your Qiyana doesn't necessarily want to be in the middle of fights, and your Ezreal and Yuumi have to be in position to be able to not only poke and harass, but actually find the angles to throw all of their spells to deal that extra damage. They're very focused on finding the right positioning in fights. Otherwise, you end up just throwing everything at the Maokai, who says, look, I don't really care. And Trundle, who says, I stole Sejuani's stats. I don't care either.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how FSU play. I do think that their mid laner has picked themselves another roaming champion, another champion that needs to pick their time exactly to go in, and we saw them do that really, really well last game. Olipop has really good awareness of what exactly his role needs to be in both the map as a whole and the team fights in micro, and so I am looking for almost the face-off between Olipop and Kog'Maw's positioning, because I think that that's going to be really the decider of the team fights. Hopefully Cassiopeia will be able to protect from some of the engage, but my eyes are on the Kog'Maw.
Yep, it's all up to... Okay, I have to actually ask this. You pronounced it in game number 1, and I didn't catch it too much, and I tried all the way through game 1 to figure out how to pronounce it. How would you say the name of this Kog'Maw?
I was trying to figure it out right now. I just said MH Trues 14, but
so you just skipped to the Trues. Okay, I like that. I kept going like Matrues, and then I was trying to figure out backwards. It's like because TH backwards is so you could do Zerthum, but I don't know. Let's just go with Trues 14. Skip the M and the H. Those are silent. It's just Trues 14. Yeah. It's very simple. I dig it. Okay. Yeah, Trues is Kog'Maw. That's going to be key. God Squad did have him playing that Varus in game number 1. Really good timing on a lot of those abilities to snipe the Ashe down a couple of different times. Even one is just straight 1v1 versus the Ashe. So we'll see how empowered they get with this Kog'Maw and the Lulu. And if this team continues, I expect more bans actually against the Lulu, because clearly God Squad likes this empower the ADC bot lane, and they just literally run tanks everywhere, empower the bot lane, ADC, and then have fun mid lane. You get to pick whatever you want.
Yeah, Angelic Baby's support pool is still relatively limited, and I'm surprised that it hasn't been targeted yet. Because they've just been able to pick up the Lulu every time, it consists mostly of like these very, very, very simple caster supports, which I think, given the way that they're drafting, can't be undervalued. In the same way that like the execution being so simple, I think that they just put a lot on the backs of the players that they know need to work, and then just draft really nicely around that, getting exactly what they want.
Yep, well, we've already seen these players. Unfortunately, not too much variety in the broadcast, but we are going to reintroduce them and the champions they're playing in this Game 3. It's finals time, baby. Let's go Game 3. Armin 546 with the Shen in the top lane for the side of FSU Black. They are back, and they are looking good. Swagasm 6969 on the Sejuani in the jungle. Ollie Pop with the Zaya in the mid lane, hoping to pop some people. Annihilator with the Ezreal on the AD carry, with the Cat as his best friend. Viathan, GWC on that Yuumi in the bot lane support.
And C9 World Champ is going to be bringing us the Maokai, along with You're Mad Cute on the Trundle. Cassiopeia is going to be piloted by Zizovic. And Trues14 and Angelic Baby are going to be bringing us the Kog'Maw Lulu from the bot lane. Actually, interesting small thing. In the past 2 weeks, every game that we've streamed, C9 World Champ has played Maokai.
So, way back when, and that's actually not that long ago, about 2 weeks ago, C9 World Champ really enjoyed himself the set in the top lane. He also really liked empowering the Ornn as well, back when Ornn basically was carrying all of the games. Well, thanks to dozens of nerfs over the last several patches, both Set and Ornn have been taken down a little bit in power. I still think they're incredibly strong, and you see them in pro play all the time, but focusing on just rolling a straight, powerful tank in top lane that really forces the enemy team to lose stats by building a Grievous Wounds directly against you, not only gives your team a super strong engaged frontline tank, but also means the enemy team has a slower time actually building damage to take you down.
Yeah, I think just having that rock of a top laner, the reason they haven't pivoted away from it is because it's so useful to have this Maokai that can draw that pressure, both from itemization and just in micro team fights when he does do well in lane, and he hasn't faltered yet.
Yep, we'll see if this time around he does falter, considering that it is a Sejuani on the enemy team side, a bit easier at being able to lock down very large champions. But C9 World Champ, generally speaking, plays very safe and focuses on just waiting until his team needs him to TP in forward engage. So we'll see if that's the same play style or if Swagasm forces something else out there. And if we see focus from these mid laners into the mid lane, because Cassiopeia and Qiyana could actually be a very volatile mid lane. Both of them have kill potential on the other. Qiyana's assassinations are really, really strong. She has the ability to jump to the river right there in that mid lane, grab the stun spell, throw it onto the Cassiopeia, who doesn't have much mobility, lock her up for Sejuani to then follow with the crowd control, and you go for a kill. But you also can have the same sort of system with the Trundle and the Cassiopeia, in that because Cassiopeia has the miasma, it locks Qiyana down, Trundle throws the pillar, Qiyana can't run away, you then kill her with all of the Twin Fangs coming out. Or do they focus on the bot lane?
Yeah, it's hard to tell where the junglers are going to feel like they have the most power. I think certainly the mid lane is going to be looking volatile, though I'm not sure if Trundle is going to feel confident ganking the Qiyana. It's more of the Sejuani that might be looking for the Cassiopeia, if anything, especially noticing in the load screen that she hasn't taken the cleanse here. But ganking Ezreal Yuumi just feels so bad, especially for Trundle, that I don't think that we're going to see that much coming out of him, and it's going to be more him responding to Swagasm, like we saw last game, but where Swagasm has, instead of the Rammus, the Sejuani, that still has that kind of early game initiative is the word that I'm looking for.
Right. Who is starting these fights? Big for both teams. We are on to Summoner's Rift for game number 3 between FSU Black and God Squad. Both teams leaving the fountains. Doesn't seem like there's any super cheesy level 1 grouped strat plays like FSU had to deal with in the last game. Viathan immediately leaving, roaming out towards that river to make sure no one tries any sneaky plays onto the blue buff. It's just a safe start across the entirety of Summoner's Rift for both of these teams. I always wonder, because we had for a long time in the meta, blue side would try to get a ward onto Raptors to see how long it took the jungler to actually get there. These days, it's not as prevalent, and usually the red side actually ends up, like you see there with the Trundle, dropping a ward to see if the enemy team jungler does some sort of invade, or just see if they try to drop a ward themselves. So I do wonder if eventually it's not going to be worth it for red side to keep too much vision in that area.
to keep too much vision in the river or in Raptors?
Oh, by that Raptors brush. So you can see the ward that the Trundle dropped on the top side, which is kind of warding to see if FSU Black comes in and wards. But I see fewer and fewer blue teams actually attempt that ward, usually preferring to kind of stay safe and not have their jungler get caught out or top laner get caught out. So I wonder if just over time, Red Side's going to stop being so concerned about the Raptors being warded.
Yeah, it might be, especially like depending on what junglers are in meta and what their win conditions are. I think specifically in Sejuani versus Trundle, knowing that they both are going to be relatively evenly matched in the early game, the ward certainly isn't providing as much value, and it may just be a habit. But I think it's so much of a fear that you don't want to get behind, especially in this matchup where we saw that Swagasm and Olipop can really abuse a jungler that's behind. I think just playing extra cautious around that can't hurt at this point.
Okay, it's fair. You know, it's better to be safe than sorry. And it's just a ward that you're going to be able to get back up before you're looking for any sort of ganks anyway. Neither of these champions, you know, hard level 2s looking for immediate top lane plays like a Jarvan or a Lee Sin might try to get something kind of initiated. So probably going to once again see a bit of a slower start unless the junglers decide to get some action going somewhere, as everyone really needs to hit those level 6s before they can start making group plays, TPs for top laners, as well as Zizavek on this Cassiopeia.
Yeah, speaking to the slow start, if we look at the bot lane's itemization, double call for both the Kog'Maw and the Ezreal, I think very much speaks to the very little action that we're going to be getting out of there.
Slower paced early game.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it'll just be a game of, for now, wave management and seeing who ends up coming out with any CS leads, but we're going to be looking at these objectives for the major stuff, or at least once Sejuani hits that 6, maybe looking to start something in the mid lane.
Yep, the Trundle is there hanging around. He's trying to just drop by Invisic and actually walk straight through the mid lane, even hit by the stun from Kiana. Olipop getting a bit of harassment as he heads to the bottom side, making sure to grab that Scuttle Crab as the Sejuani has been able to grab it to the top side river. So kind of trading Scuttle Crabs across the board, but it means the FSU Black really want to focus on covering this top lane side. Whoa, Sejuani actually started with that scrying Oracle lens, so she's immediately up here. They've got the taunt onto C9 World Champ, but I think he's underneath this turret a bit too deep for them to actually try to chase that.
Yeah, just walking through the lanes there. I think Sejuani probably wanting to head back soon. Has checked the brush though and knows that it's not warded, so may be able to get a small invade in. I think it would be a mistake to stay around this top side for too long. Better to reset and continue farming to that level 6 mark.
Yep, so just go back to farming. And keep in mind, it's no surprise that FSU Black want to control the top side because, yeah, okay, Trundle may have some control around bottom side, and maybe they even get a Drake in the early game, but it's an Ezreal Yubi. It's one of the absolute safest bottom lanes in all of League of Legends. It's so unlikely that you can actually kill these two, especially when you only have a Lulu and a Kog'Maw as the bottom lane, not something with really hard crowd control like a Leona or Nautilus, that you really don't have to worry too much. They're going to be down there farming and poking for the next half hour. As we saw with those calls, there's just not a whole lot of action is going to be happening. It's more going to be around this mid lane and top lane that I'm expecting to see.
Yeah, both top laners getting relatively low, but neither jungler actually in the area. First Drake is going to be Windrake as well, so relatively low priority for both of these teams. And we might actually see this dragon live for a while if neither team commits onto, say, Rift Herald, for example. I think that that's almost a more valuable objective at this point.
And interestingly enough, despite top lane being a bit slower of a game, look at C9 World Champ continuing to, even though he's got low mana, find farm leads against other top laners. He's been able to get a 10 CS lead against Armin, even though it's not like Shen's been shoved under his own turret, right? This is simply just how well can you farm versus your opponent. And C9 World Champ, even though he's got super low mana, has been able to play around that very well. Didn't get to actually see the Sejuani and Kiana stealing away the Windrake for FSU Black, as that's going to give them really, really nice movement speed to be able to get around the map, especially that Kiana looking for those flanks.
It is surprising that we see that investment into the Drake early on, though, especially because it costs Kiana a lot of mid lane pressure. And speaking of the CS leads that we saw in the top lane, Kiana falling down in farm to the Cassiopeia is not something you want to see from what you're looking at as a threat onto the Kog'Maw later.
Yeah, it's because they're waiting until they get those kind of first items for the ADCs. I feel like the Ezreal taking such long time to pick up his tier is more of a deficit for FSU Black than it is for God Squad, because, whoa, they might find something here. Sejuani jumping out, immediately forcing out the flash of Trues. He's been exhausted as well. They're continuing to poke some damage, but they just kind of traded summoner spells for summoner spells, using the heal and ignite from the Yuumi. Exhaust and ignite from the Yuumi. They burned the flash from the Kog'Maw, and that seems to be enough for them.
Yeah, Sejuani will back off here, and I think it does feel really good to burn that flash, but not, again, like speaking to the temperament of these AD carries, not burning the barrier either, not even burning the heal out of Angelic Baby. No panic. They knew that they just needed to buy the distance from the Sejuani, and that would secure Kog'Maw's safety well enough. And so actually not too much to be punished later on, even if the Sejuani were to choose to come back.
Yep, so the Sejuani has gone back into the jungle, probably could clear the bottom side, then try to rotate back into the bottom lane with the Ezreal and Yuumi, who are now recalling, so Ez should be able to grab his tier. There it is, as well as that pickaxe, not worrying about boots. You kind of see a similar story coming out from the Kog'Maw. Again, he knows he's going to be up against the big tanks of the Shen, as well as the Sejuani, so starting off looking for, I believe the Cutlass builds into the Blade of the Ruined King, correct?
Cutlass, yes, Cutlass goes into Blade of the Ruined King. It'll also technically go into Hextech Gunblade, but I don't think that we'll be seeing that today.
Oh, that would be so spicy. I haven't actually seen Hextech besides Akali in forever. That item just disappeared after the Akali meta disappeared.
Yeah. I have seen a few Volibears trying it out when they get spicy, but not too much in specifically these kinds of tournaments. As now, looks like, yeah, Trundle just being able to power farm is about still even in CS with Sejuani, who has gotten more done on the map so far, but the CS gap staying the same between Cassiopeia and Qiyana actually feels relatively good for the Qiyana. I thought it was going to impact her much more, but if that CS gap continues the same, being down in CS as a melee into a mid-range matchup doesn't feel that bad unless it continues into the later stages of the game, when you should be having more impact as that kind of melee assassin, because the pressure is on you to make things happen.
Right, and that Cassiopeia 30 CS up over Qiyana. If that continues for too much longer, it is really going to hurt. You can see that Olipop is rotating the bottom lane, kind of hoping to start something. There is a control ward in the Tri-Brush, so may have been able to sneak in, kind of do a similar play to what the Sejuani did last time, knowing that the flash is down on that Kog'Maw, but it wasn't able to actually make anything happen, especially with the God Squad doing a really solid freeze. See, now World Champ, though, going to find himself, he gets smacked by the boar around, stunned up for a moment. The flashing forward, not even flash, excuse me, just the dashing forward from the Shen to find the taunt. See now World Champ down to about under 100 health. Ultimate out from Swagasm. They get themselves the Maokai, and now they can look to try to take down Trundle as well. Shen ultimate committed to make sure Sejuani lives through that, as your Mad Q immediately backing away. Already invested the ultimate, so now going to be without those stats. Has to flee to the turret.
That was a really good heads-up play there, as it looks like we're getting a fight in the bot side.
Yeah, final chapter coming through. Goodbye to the Ezreal. The Yuumi had kind of hopped off with that final chapter, trying to get a little bit of poke down. Was that a TP I saw being burned? No, just the ultimate of the Kog'Maw that was dropping.
Yeah, it was just the Kog'Maw, but interestingly, Kog'Maw Lulu finding themselves their own advantage, even on the flashless Kog'Maw in the bot side. We talked a little bit about, oh my god.
Yeah, Cassiopeia coming in, trying to lock them down. There's a Qiyana ultimate, but it's not going to deal all that much. Does it even steal away the Rift Herald? I don't think so. Shen coming in with the taunt, though, so Zivivek will fall down, and now they back away. Is it... Who actually got the Rift Herald?
I think Shen got the Rift Herald. Yeah, you can see it in his
Okay,
inventory.
yeah, Shen grabbed it. Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, like, having that on your Shen will be nice, because generally you want to drop the Rift Herald where you make a play, and Shen, hopefully with the ultimate, can be where you make the play. But just bringing it back with Cassiopeia overstaying a little bit on that Rift Herald, having Trues and Angelic be able to find their own advantages in the bot lane without the assistance of the jungle, even being ganked by the jungler earlier, is kind of a similar story to what we saw in the first game, where it was just kind of being out-microed in that bot lane that ended up costing a lot. And it is playing into the win condition for this team.
Yep, so we'll see if the side of FSU Black can actually continue to find a little bit more success. And so, you know, World Champ throws out that ultimate. Armin, even if he gets rooted up under the turret, should be all right. Annihilator, a little bit of trouble as the chasing from Your Mad Cute already used the pillar, but I think that the slows, the exhaust coming down. Annihilator should be dropping. Leviathan cannot heal the Ezreal up enough. Swagasm should be able to hop over the wall, charge in with that Arctic Assault. Instead, going to focus on Zizavek. Might not even know that the Cassiopeia was there. Now going to be deeply in trouble. TP's coming in for the top laners from both sides. Great final chapter from Yuumi, but I think that's just for the disengage. If God Squad have to back away, and unfortunately, the Trundle Pillar actually locks God Squad out of catching out the Shen as well, but it does open up the second Drake for themselves.
Yeah, and that was really nice play by Zizovic, especially as you saw him moving down, mirroring the Kiana and denying the straight line into the team fight, wasn't able to use anything to turn that around and save his bot laner. Instead, Zizovic just being able to match him made it so that as an assassin, you felt like you couldn't really get into the fight and had to loop all the way around.
Yep. So it's just because you have to do a lot of kind of moving around, that Wind Drake really helping out FSU Black to get some of that movement. Otherwise, they could have lost way more than just the Ezreal. I mean, even Leviathan was able to actually escape out of that situation. So definitely being helped out. They dropped the Rift Herald in the mid lane. It was close to timing out, but they're hoping to at least get those gold plates off that mid lane turret and have some use of that Rift Herald through that mid lane, getting the gold. We do have only a minute and a half left before those plates fall down, so no second Rift Herald charge there. And they said, hey, you know what? Might as well grab the gold while we got it.
Yeah, both Cassiopeia and Ezreal going to be stacking up their respective tiers, but a small injection of gold into the mid lane might be what they need to turn that around.
Yeah, Angelic Baby caught out, just kind of stuck inside that small alcove on the bottom side. Here comes the Kiana. Unfortunately, Yuumi's heal's not enough to save themselves. The Ezreal ultimate from Kiana, not able to quite find the kill onto that Kog'Maw, even burned the barrier to make sure that he didn't get taken down too far as the members of FSU Black back away. A third death, though, on Annihilator. This Ezreal, Yuumi just unable to keep him alive.
Yeah, and I keep talking about how much I'm loving how Zizovic is playing as he's doing it again.
Yep, throws out that Petrify, the Shen ultimate coming through, but everyone's already dead. True Shot Barrage slices through, but isn't going to affect anyone. Top side, once again, the focus from FSU Black. They're going to try to skirmish a little bit up there with C9 World Champ. They want to shut down this tank, but his job is to distract. His job is to just tank away, and he almost takes down Swagasm as well. Gets a big heal off of that auto as well. The passive gets the kill onto Sejuani. C9 World Champ making the outplays in the top side. Another heal with the passive. I think Armin finally has enough damage. Even with that sapling, he will get out. 2v1, at least even for C9 World Champ.
Oh, and that was going to feel so bad, and it ended up feeling even worse for FSU as they lose everything in the bot side, not being able to even keep their mid laner alive under the turret with the Yuumi. And then in a 2v1, lose to the Maokai, their jungler. And that is... I think this is what we might call the beginning of the end. I think it's certainly possible for FSU to bring this back, but I think that from now, I would say that it is the God Squad's game to lose, where they have a little bit more free reign. We saw what I wanted to talk about, Zizovic, when he teleported down to the bot side, instantly threw out the Miasma to peel 4 Trues, didn't throw it to try and secure a kill, but instead to deny the dash onto his AD carry, which I really liked as like playing the supportive style, but then instantly demonstrating that he can also be the carry with the capitalization on the fact that 2 people were just staring him in the face in the bot side.
Yep. He just walked underneath the turret, threw down the Petrify. I was like, I don't even care. You're a Yuumi who's got 200 health, and the Ollie Pop on the Kiana has no resistances whatsoever. Hard focus. Goodbye, Armin, in the top lane. Even with those turret shots, it's not going to matter. Kiana went down to Cassiopeia. There's actually 3 deaths in close order. Mid lane, very close between the two. So Cassiopeia sacrifices her life to take down the Kiana, who just had Yuumi's Ghost Play at the time that the fight in the bottom side happened. So no real movement speed. C9 World Champ trying to 1v2. Look at the damage onto Annihilator. This is a tank, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind, this is a tank chunking Ezreal for 400 health with a single spell.
Is this our new assassin Ornn?
Oh, please no. Please no. I've seen way too many Ornn 100-0 people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hope, or was it? Thankfully, Maokai's lethal range is not quite as large as Ornn's, but True's is looking to be what is most of a health bar. Swagasm is going to see this Rift Herald being started, but True's just sees something else to auto attack, starts walking forward, and buys a lot of space for his team. Should be able to get out.
Yep, that's the second Rift Herald going over to the side of God Squad, giving it over to Your Mad Cute so they can drop it to give themselves third brick of the game as they get top and bottom side, thanks to C9 World Champ being a World Champ, apparently, world-class player, as they can now drop Rift Herald in the mid lane. May not even need it as Cassiopeia and Lulu are there to kind of start to harass it down. Eventually, Kog'Maw's going to arrive as well and shouldn't take them long to secure these outdoor turrets.
You mentioned your concern in draft, and I think it might come to light as there is an Ocean Drake soul on the map. So C9 World Champ with Your Mad Cute, if they continue this kind of dominance in the mid game, should just be able to get themselves close enough to a soul that it is a possibility that Trundle and Maokai just become unkillable frontliners for this COG.
Yep, it's going to be really difficult for FSU Black to get back into the game and kind of catch up. They're down about 7,000 gold to the 17-minute mark, which is pretty insane if you actually think about the total amount of gold that the God Squad is ahead, the team is ahead. A lot of that is off of just farm. Look at the Maokai, 114 farm to the 64 of Shen, 150 on the Cassiopeia to the 100 on the Kiana. Even the Kog'Maw is at least staying even with that. No way! Swagasm stole the Ocean Drake and gets out, jumping over the back of the Arctic Assault. Shen, you might be dead, but I think that's well worth it if you steal away the Drake. Flashes the wall into the Raptor Pit as well. God Squad is angry after losing the Drake. They're on the hunt, should secure this mid-tier, first-tier turret, but FSU Black, that's gotta get them cheering.
Yeah, that's got to feel good to be able to deny something that that God Squad wanted, but God Squad are upset about it and looking to push down these turrets. With the low health bars after being chased off the dragon there, they should be able to capitalize on this quite a bit. Shen is waiting in base, has the ultimate, and will start walking up, but Swagasm isn't able to back to recoup his health bar, and is in a lot of danger from this Kog'Maw, who is built to take him down with the Blade of the Ruined King.
Yep, it's just going to be really, really tough to get in. Again, you have to take down these carries. You've got a lot of tank that you have to get through and burn through before you can get them, unless the Kiana can find the way around. She's jumping in. She's trying to get that ultimate down. Can't she even escape? That Petrify from the Cassiopeia not going to work. Shen now going to go down. Uncoordinated play by FSU as two members just jump straight on in, hoping with a desperation play to take down this Kog'Maw.
Yeah, they get the flash and the barrier out of the Kog'Maw, but even though just because they don't get the Kog'Maw's life, it ends up costing them so much as they took the fight right next to their inhibitor turret when it looked like that God Squad was going to back off. So a little bit of a desperation play there at an awkward time ends up actually losing them the inhib turret that they otherwise would have kept until another day.
Yep, so God Squad, they get themselves a mid lane inhibitor turret, and they seem in full control over the game. 10,000 gold lead, and kind of similar to game number 1, they probably are going to just wait for the Baron to spawn in about 20 seconds, grab it, and then look to finish the game off with that.
Yeah, and now we should have a Gwynsu's on Kog'Maw as soon as he backs. He's been hovering around these items for long enough that I think that after that immense gold injection from the push there, he should be able to pick that up, which will help them take down Baron even faster. Cassiopeia Kog'Maw do not have a Baron speed to be laughed at this point in the game.
So without that ability from FSU Black to really stop the pushing of the Baron buff minions, what are their chances of getting back into this game? They might be able to group and catch out one person like this Cassiopeia solo in the bot lane if they had the vision to know that. But outside of that, I'm really just not seeing any way without a big mistake from God Squad they even start to come back.
Yeah, it is so tough, and like I said, I think it is God Squad's game to lose as of just a little while ago. But it does come down to, instead of a really big macro play, because I think that macro is almost beyond them at this point in the game, with Kog'Maw being as ahead as he is, that they can just, God Squad can ignore whatever macro FSU do and play to their own win conditions, and it really comes down to that that one team fight that they need to look for. Olipop does have Flash and Ignite up, and Trues has neither of his summoners up. So before those come up, I think that they need to find another fight, ideally once Shen Ultimate is popped, or Shen Ultimate is available, so that they can try and jump onto that Kog'Maw and find him.
Here goes the final play. C9 World Champ trying to be the tank under the turret. Sejuani going down. No chance to be able to survive as the Trundle stole away all the tank stats. Arnmin gonna follow next. And when you have no tanks, you have no chance of survival. Goodbye to the Yuumi as well. The ace for God Squad as they just rip through FSU's line. Cassiopeia is already onto the Nexus turrets number 1 and 2, taking them down as well. This should be the end of the game as God Squad will end the night out in a very clean fashion.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to see Trues be able to play, and I felt like both these compositions did play really well, respectively. And I think that Zizovic gets a lot of credit for what happened to this game with being able to control his mid laner that was such a key part of FSU's comp last game.
Yep. So with that final game 3, FSU Black and God Squad takes the victory, but FSU Black had some good moments. I liked Swagasm positioning overall in the early game, focusing on the top side and making sure that up there was safe because they had such a safe bottom lane. But what really kind of tore this game open was when Zizivek roamed into the bottom lane, catching out Olipop after multiple roams down there, and then finding the 2 kills underneath the turret, just kind of sitting up and waiting for this snake to come in and gobble them up. It really just opened up the game into God Squad's favor, and FSU Black never had anything to respond after that.
Yeah, God Squad showing us, even from the first game to now, that once that snowball gets rolling, it is really, really hard to stop. And I think that they just executed really well, just like we saw in Game 1. Playing around the attack speed with the Lulu is something that they're really good at, and something that I would look to deny them in future games, lest this happen again.
Yep, so we should here in a moment toss it back to the analyst desk to kind of break down this game number 3 before we end the night. But it's definitely been a lot of fun. Seems like they're ready to go, so we'll hear what their final thoughts are on this game number 3. Mitt and Ravishing Ravish, thank you so much for coming in as the analyst desk. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Jake. We watched that one, and oh my gosh, that was a quick one to end the night, Rav.
Oh man. Were you watching the same game I was? Because I know you were, man.
Oh yeah, and I mean, at the beginning of that, in our pregame analysis, I thought that FSU was going to take it. I thought that their jungle mid synergy was really, really strong. And they picked a really decent, mid jungle to go into this game with. They had a Sejuani and a Kiana. That's pretty strong. But then when you look at what's happening on the other team, you start to realize that in the global context of things, it's actually not that great, right? So you got the Trundle that counters the Sejuani naturally. He presses R, he steals all of her stats, he just goes to town. You got Cassiopeia, who's a team fight threat, second team fight threat, and also has the Miasma, which is kind of like a soft counter to Kiana, keeps her from jumping around like a lunatic. But really, the big thing that makes me question the Kiana pick is the Lulu pick, right? So if you're picking Kiana, you're picking any assassin mid, AD assassin mid. You're trying to blow up the AD carry. That's your main goal in team fights. You're not going to be able to blow up anything if there's a Lulu there. It just makes your job so much harder. So I really would have liked to see a control mage get picked up in the mid lane instead of the Kiana for Ollie. And that might just be because, looking at Ollie's champ pool, he's more of an assassin main. He plays things like Kassadin, Kiana, the Diana that we saw, big assassins. So maybe it's time to start expanding the pool a little bit, pick up the Orianas, the Syndras, control mages. That's just what I think.
Yeah, it was absolutely mad then. It's like overall, past that too, one good point, which I believe Diet, one of the casters brought up too was so Kiana really shines for I'm not really too sure who brought it up. I believe it was one of the casters. Kiana really shines overall in really grouped objective fights, right? It's like that's one of the main things about her, especially with her ultimate. She's just overall really able to like lock down certain targets. But almost through all of those fights, that Cassiopeia just shut her down on the back end, not really allowing her to be able to use to be able to use their ultimate, get into those fights, lock down targets, and be dare I say useful here, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, no,
it
for
was
sure.
absolutely dangerous. Past that too, speaking of being useful, you know how we're talking about how Ezreal Yumi, one of the safest bot lanes in the
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yup.
Could you tell me why? Could you tell me why the Ezreal was like 0-3, but like 10 minutes? I don't know
So
what's going on there.
I was looking at Annihilator and I was watching his play, and he was playing Ezreal like someone else might play a Draven or a Caitlyn, like more of a lane bully, right? So he's playing really far forward. He's going for kills. He's eing forward to try and pick up the kill onto Lulu. At one point, I saw that he, arcane shifts forward onto a Lulu that has ulti available, and just completely ignores the fact that Kog'Maw's just plugging autos into him the entire time. It's so it's. I think Annihilator needs to take a step back, go to the drawing board, and think about, okay, I'm playing an Ezreal. What is my goal here? Where are my power spikes? Where am I actually going to be strong? Because I believe he was like 0-1 or 0-2 when he actually went for that Lulu kill.
Yeah.
He goes down. I think he was out in the river going for wards or something by himself, gets caught out of position, ends up dying there. So, I mean, the most important thing as an AD carry, especially in this meta, is being able to gather resources, especially when you're on an AD carry that's like an Ezreal or a Kog'Maw, right? They're both mid to late scaling AD carries. If the Ezreal gets into equal footing with the Kog'Maw in the mid game, right? Ezreal's gonna be more influential in that mid game before the Kog'Maw can really get rolling into his late game power spikes. But if
Yep.
the Kog'Maw gets to get some early kills on the Ezreal for really no good reason, you're just gonna fast track this Kog'Maw into the next generation,
Yeah.
and he's going to be destroying your team fight, which is exactly what we saw happen.
Yeah, definitely so. And also one really big point too was I saw that with the Trundle getting into these team fights, was able to just take away all this tank stats from the Sejuani, almost running her to her son, and with Trundle on pillar duty, be able to do so much work. The Sedge too, I find, was focusing a lot on the top lane as well, because you saw that bot lane was getting away from her, which is absolutely so unfortunate. But overall, any thoughts to close out this game here, Mitt?
I mean, both of these teams were playing great. I just would like to see a little bit of cleanup from FSU. I think they have a really good roster. They just need to clean up a few things. So get real good on your clarity of purpose. For Annihilator, I'd say, figure out what your goal is on your AD carry that you're picking, and really
Yeah.
play to that strength. And then, I mean, it sounds really obvious, but it's something that a lot of people, you get caught up in the heat of the moment. You see like a 50% HP Lulu, and you're like, I need to kill this man. But do you really need to kill this man, or can you just take that
No.
time to farm, right?
Yeah.
And then for Ollie, I would say I love the mechanics. I think Ollie has great mechanics. We've seen some amazing stuff from him and good game sense as well. Like, he was there for the fights on Kiana. He was there with Diana shutting down that Hecarim. I'd just say expand the champ pool a little bit so your team has a little bit more flexibility in